The stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across the void. Serene and undisturbed, the Zvo Dominion, an empire spanning over 100 systems, had grown complacent. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology superior, their conquests effortless. Yet as they prepared to crush another rebellious world, they made one fatal mistake. They assumed humanity wouldn't come. Prime was nothing more than a mining colony, a backwater world with a small, struggling population. The Zvo fleet surrounded it like a pack of predators circling a wounded animal. The planetary defenses were primitive, barely worth acknowledging. Lord General Viren watched from the bridge of his dreadnought, a cruel smirk stretching across his reptilian features. "This will be over before their sun sets," he muttered, his clawed fingers tapping the armrest of his command throne. "Prepare the bombardment." A Zvo officer turned from his console, his scaled face showing no emotion. "Sir, long-range sensors have detected an anomaly at the system's edge." Viren waved a dismissive hand. "Likely a malfunction. Our dominance is absolute. Continue the assault." But before the first plasma round could be fired, the anomaly resolved itself into something terrifying. A rupture in space, a distortion unlike anything the Zvo had ever encountered. And then, from the void, they arrived. The Terran fleet, sleek, black warships bristling with weapons, emerged from slip space in tight formation. Their hulls bore no unnecessary markings, only the insignia of the United Terran Defense Force, an unbroken silver ring encircling a single burning star. Humanity had come. For too long, the galaxy had underestimated them. Seen as a young, reckless species dismissed as insignificant, but the humans had been watching, learning, waiting, and now they had chosen their moment. "Sir," the Zvo officer's voice carried an edge of something Viren had never heard before: fear. "The Terran ships are locking onto us." Viren's smirk faltered. "Impossible. Humans have never." The first shot fired wasn't a warning. It was an execution. A lance of searing blue energy speared through the Zvo destroyer at the fleet's edge, cutting it in half before its crew could even react. And then the void erupted with fire. The Terran fleet moved like no force the Zvo had ever faced. Their ships were faster, more coordinated, striking with lethal precision. While the Dominion had relied on sheer numbers and overwhelming brutality, humanity had perfected something far deadlier: efficiency. Viren watched in stunned silence as another Zvo cruiser was torn apart by a barrage of hypervelocity rounds, its armor shredded like paper. He barely had time to bark an order before the next explosion rocked his dreadnought, sending tremors through the deck. This is not possible," he snarled. "They should not be here." But they were, and they weren't stopping. For the first time in centuries, the Zvo Dominion found itself on the defensive. Their mighty fleet, feared across the stars, was being torn apart by the one species they had dismissed as weak. The humans weren't just fighting, they were hunting, and they were winning. Viren gritted his teeth, watching the Terran fleet tear through his forces like a storm of steel and fire. He had underestimated them. The Dominion had underestimated them, and now they would all pay the price. Panic rippled through the Zvo fleet like a virus. Their carefully maintained formations crumbled under the relentless assault. What should have been an easy conquest was rapidly turning into a massacre. Lord General Viren gripped the armrest of his command throne, his claws digging into the metal. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. This wasn't how wars were fought in the Dominion. Battles were meant to be one-sided, swift, merciless. The enemy was supposed to kneel, not strike back with terrifying precision. "Pull back to the second defense line," he barked. His officers scrambled to obey, sending hasty commands through the chaotic channels. The remaining Zvo warships broke away from the wreckage of their comrades, forming a desperate defensive perimeter. Plasma turrets swiveled, missile bays unlocked, shields roared to life. But the humans didn't pause. They didn't hesitate. A squadron of Terran frigates punched through the gaps in the Zvo formation like knives through flesh. Their weapons didn't just disable, they annihilated. The humans fought like they had something to prove. Viren narrowed his eyes. No, not something to prove. Something to avenge. Sir, a Zvo officer's voice trembled. We've lost contact with 2 more warships, and our jamming fields aren't working. They're bypassing all electronic interference. Viren's scale brow furrowed. Impossible. The Dominion had dominated every species encountered. No one had technology beyond their own. But humanity wasn't just another species, and that terrified him. A new transmission crackled through the Dreadnought's command deck, forcing itself through the Dominion's encrypted channels like an uninvited guest. Zvo Fleet, this is Admiral Elias Rains of the United Terran Defense Force. The voice was calm, unyielding. You have one chance. Leave the system immediately or be reduced to debris. Silence swallowed the bridge. No one spoke. Even Viren felt his throat tighten. A demand? From a human? He slammed his fist against the armrest, standing so abruptly his command chair screeched against the floor. They dare demand terms from us? His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, we are significantly outgunned. Our reinforcements are hours away. The Terran fleet is an annoyance, Viren growled. Not a threat. We hold our ground. But deep down he knew that was a lie. The Zvo Dominion had never encountered a force like this before. The humans weren't relying on brute force or superior numbers. They were surgical, efficient, and worst of all, they were relentless. Another explosion rocked the Dreadnought as the Terran battleships pressed forward, their cannons hammering into Zvo's shields, tearing apart once mighty warships like they were made of brittle glass. Viren's confidence faltered. His fleet was dying, and for the first time in his long military career, he felt something cold wrap around his chest. Fear. The Zvo fleet was unraveling. The once proud warships of the Dominion, known across the galaxy as unstoppable engines of conquest, were now reduced to burning wrecks. Debris drifted through the void, the shattered remains of vessels that had once brought entire civilizations to their knees. Lord General Viren could hardly process what was happening. His mind refused to accept the sheer brutality of the human assault. The Dominion had faced resistance before, rebellions, uprisings, even coordinated fleets of defiant species clinging to their worthless independence. But nothing like this. Humanity wasn't resisting. They were annihilating. Sir, the Dreadnought car is gone. It was torn apart by some kind of kinetic bombardment. No energy signature, just raw mass moving at impossible speeds. Viren's breath caught in his throat. That wasn't Dominion warfare. That wasn't how battles were fought. Energy weapons, plasma cannons, and shielded engagements had ruled the void for centuries. But the humans had perfected something terrifyingly simple. They were throwing solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, using gravity itself as a weapon. No shielding could compensate for that. No Dominion ship was designed to withstand such raw, unstoppable force. And they knew it. The Terran fleet moved like a pack of wolves, isolating stragglers, hammering weak points, cutting the Zvo apart piece by piece. They were ruthless, precise. There was no waste, no hesitation, no mercy. Viren's claws dug into his palms. His officers were waiting for orders, for guidance, for something, anything. But what could he say? Sir, a younger officer stammered, breaking protocol by speaking without permission. His scaled skin was pale, his wide eyes locked onto the tactical display. They're leaving us an opening. Viren's head snapped up. What? The officer pointed at the star chart. The humans had systematically dismantled the Zvo's formation, driving them into a tightening spiral of destruction. But now, at the very edge of the battlefield, there was a gap, a narrow corridor leading away from Kessler Prime toward the hyperlane exit. They're letting us escape, another officer whispered, disbelief laced in every word. Viren's mouth twisted into a snarl. Letting them escape? As if they were vermin, spared only because extermination wasn't worth the effort? No, he hissed. We fight to the last. But his crew didn't share his conviction. They exchanged uncertain glances, their bodies tense, their hands trembling over their consoles. They had seen the impossible today. They had seen what the humans could do, and they wanted to live. Another explosion rattled the bridge. The shields were failing. The armor was buckling. The dreadnought itself, the pride of the Dominion's armada, was moments away from being torn apart like all the others. A second transmission came through. This time, the human admiral's voice carried no emotion. Last chance. Viren's claws flexed. His pride screamed at him to fight, to defy, to show these humans that the Zvo Dominion never surrendered. But then he looked at the display, at what remained of his fleet, at the ghosts of the ships that once surrounded him. And for the first time in his life, Lord General Viren issued the order he had sworn he never would. All remaining ships withdraw. The bridge was silent. Then, one by one, his officers moved. The surviving Zvo warships turned, retreating through the gap humanity had left for them, their weapons silent, their pride shattered. Viren's hands trembled. He fell hollow. The Dominion had never lost a battle like this. And yet today, they had not only lost, they had been humiliated. As the remnants of the once mighty Zvo fleet limped away from Kessa Prime, silence filled the bridge of Viren's dreadnought. It wasn't the silence of discipline or of solemn duty. It was the silence of shame. They had been broken, not in the way lesser species crumble before the Dominion's might, but in a way that cut far deeper. The humans had not merely defeated them, they had allowed them to flee, like predators sparing wounded prey too insignificant to waste energy on. Viren's claws dug into the armrests of his command throne. His officers dared not speak. They could feel the weight of failure pressing down on them all. The Dominion did not retreat. It did not surrender. It never bent to the will of another. And yet here they were, running. A deep growl rumbled from Viren's throat as he stared at the tactical display. The Terran fleet had not pursued. They had not tried to wipe them from existence. Instead, they held their position over Kessa Prime, as if daring the Dominion to try again. Arrogance? No, confidence. Viren clenched his fists. How? How had they grown so powerful, so capable? Humanity had been dismissed as an upstart species, one of many scattered civilizations with potential but no real threat to the galactic order. They lacked numbers, they lacked expansion, they lacked fear. But now the truth was undeniable. The humans were beyond fear. A Zvo officer hesitated before speaking. Lord General, shall we transmit a report to High Command? Viren's eyes narrowed. What would he even say? That the Dominion's most elite fleet had been slaughtered? That a single Terran Armada had reduced them to fleeing cowards? That humanity, the barely acknowledged species, had just rewritten everything the Zvo believed about their dominance? No, that report would come later. But first, he needed to understand what had just happened. His claws tapped against the armrest in slow, methodical movements. We will return to Zvo Prime, he said at last. No word of this is to leave this ship until I say otherwise. The officers exchanged wary glances, but obeyed. The Dominion's honor had already been tarnished today. There was no need to spread their disgrace before they could find a way to avenge it. Viren turned back toward the viewport, staring at the distant stars. Humanity had won this day, but he would ensure that, one way or another, this war was far from over. As the Zvo fleet retreated into the cold abyss of space, Lord General Viren sat motionless in his command throne, his mind a storm of disbelief and rage. The battle, the humiliation, played over and over his mind like a haunting vision. It had been no ordinary defeat. No, this was something far worse. The Dominion had always operated under the assumption that they were the pinnacle of military power, that no species, no matter how ambitious or rebellious, could challenge their dominion over the stars. But today, humanity had shattered that illusion, and they had done so with terrifying precision. The humans had not just fought, they had studied the Zvo. They had adapted, exploited weaknesses, and used weapons the Dominion had no counter for. This was not the reckless bravery of an inferior species flailing against an empire. This was cold, calculated annihilation. Viren's fists clenched. "Sir," a hesitant voice interrupted his thoughts. Viren turned his gaze towards the officer standing near the communication terminal. The younger Zvo's scales were pale, his posture uncertain. Even his voice betrayed something unthinkable for a Dominion officer. Hesitation. "What?" Viren snapped. The officer flinched but held his ground. "High Command is requesting an immediate battle report." Viren exhaled sharply through his nostrils. Of course they were. The moment the Dominion fleet had warped into Kessa Prime system, victory had already been assumed. The higher ranks likely expected a report detailing yet another world crushed under the Zvo boot. But that was not the report they would receive. He stared at the blank holoscreen before him. He could already see their reactions, the disbelief, the scorn, the demand for an explanation. His name would be dragged to the halls of power as a commander who had failed. The Dominion had not suffered a loss of this magnitude in generations, and it had happened under his watch. His officers were waiting for him to lie, to dress up the battle as a mere strategic withdrawal, to maintain the illusion of the Dominion's invincibility. But what good would a lie do? The humans had proven themselves, and that fact would not change no matter how much the Dominion tried to deny it. Viren's claws tapped against the armrest. His voice, when he spoke, was lower, measured. "Transmit only the essentials. Inform High Command that we encountered an unexpected resistance force at Kessa Prime." The officer hesitated. "Should we identify them?" Viren's eyes narrowed. The answer should have been obvious, but something in his gut told him that naming humanity directly, admitting that the Great Zvo Dominion had been bested not by some vast ancient power, but by humans, would send ripples of uncertainty through the Empire. "No," he said finally. "Not yet." The officer nodded and relayed the message. The bridge remained eerily silent. No one dared to speak. They all understood what had happened today, and despite their best efforts, none of them could escape the truth. Viren turned back toward the viewport. Kessa Prime was now a distant speck of light, but he could still see the Terran fleet in his mind's eye, watching, waiting, daring the Dominion to return. They had underestimated humanity. That would not happen again. The Dominion did not accept rivals. If humanity wished to challenge their rule, then they would be crushed, no matter how long it took. Viren's claws dug into the armrest one last time. This is not over. The silence on the bridge of Viren's dreadnought was suffocating. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of their retreat hung over them like a noose, tightening with every second they drifted further from Kessa Prime. Viren's mind churned with rage and calculation. The humans had not just fought back. They had dictated the battle. The Zvo had been reduced to prey scrambling away from a predator that was faster, smarter, and far more lethal than anyone had imagined. And what was worse, the humans had let them escape. His claws scraped against the armrest of his command throne. This humiliation would not stand. He turned to his second-in-command, a veteran officer named Rock. The older Zvo's expression was as tight as his own, his posture rigid with barely contained anger. Good. At least he wasn't the only one burning with the desire for vengeance. "Rock," Viren said at last, his voice controlled but laced with menace. "I want everything we have on humanity." Rock's reptilian eyes flickered with understanding. "You mean their fleets, technology, military history?" Viren's nostrils flared. "Everything. I want to know where they came from, how they built those ships, how they fight. I want to know why we didn't see this coming, and most of all," he leaned forward, his voice lowering to a dangerous growl, "I want to know how to kill them." A few of the bridge officers shifted uncomfortably. Fear? No, uncertainty. None of them had ever considered humanity to be a true threat before today. The idea of an extended war with them was something no Zvo had ever entertained, because it wasn't supposed to be possible. Rock nodded sharply. "I'll gather what we have. But, sir, if I may speak freely." Viren narrowed his eyes. "Go on." Rock hesitated for only a moment before stepping closer. We have always treated lesser species the same way. Overwhelming force, no mercy, no diplomacy. It has worked for centuries. But the humans, they study their enemies. They don't just fight. They adapt. His voice darkened. We saw that today. Viren's jaw tightened. He didn't need the reminder. Rock lowered his voice even further. What if we can't beat them the way we have beaten everyone else? The bridge fell silent. The words hung in the air like a curse. Viren's eyes glowed with cold fury. Then we change the way we fight. He stood, towering over the command deck. The Dominion will not be humiliated again. If brute force is not enough, then we will evolve. We will match their cunning with our own. We will learn their weaknesses. We will break them before they ever have a chance to break us. He turned back to the viewport, staring into the infinite black of space where, somewhere out there, the human fleet still lingered. They thought they had won. They thought the Dominion would fear them now. But all they had done was light the fire of vengeance. Prepare for our return to Svo Prime, he ordered. His voice carried across the bridge like the toll of a war drum. And inform High Command. Humanity is no longer an insignificance. His eyes narrowed. They are a threat. And threats had only one fate. They were eradicated. The journey back to Svo Prime was long, but it was far from silent. The surviving officers of Viren's fleet worked with tense, focused efficiency, knowing full well what awaited them upon their return. The Dominion did not tolerate failure, and today had been the greatest failure in generations. Viren sat in his private chamber aboard the dreadnought, staring at the holographic projection before him. The image displayed the tactical readouts of the battle over Kessa Prime, replaying every devastating moment in brutal clarity. Each ship lost, each maneuver countered, each moment where humanity had dominated them. His claws curled into a fist. The humans had been underestimated for too long. That mistake would not be repeated. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he said, his voice low and cold. Rock stepped inside, holding a data tablet. His expression was grim, his posture tense. He placed the tablet on the table between them and activated it. A series of reports, intercepted transmissions, and intelligence briefings flickered to life. "This is everything we have on humanity," Rock said. Viren leaned forward, scanning the information. They had been a fractured species for most of their history, locked in wars against themselves, clawing their way through technological advancement through conflict and desperation. Yet against all odds, they had unified under a single banner when they reached the stars, not because of peace, but because a void beyond had forced them to. Wars against their own kind, Viren murmured, reading further. Endless bloodshed, and yet they survived. They did more than survive, Rock corrected. They thrived. Their military advancements accelerated at an alarming rate, faster than any other species in known history. Every war they fought made them stronger. Every loss turned into a lesson. And most concerning of all, he paused, as if uncertain whether to continue. Viren's eyes darkened. "Speak." Rock exhaled. "They don't just fight wars to win, Lord General. They fight wars to end their enemies permanently." Viren stiffened. He had suspected as much. The humans had not come to Kessa Prime with the intention of a simple battle. They had come with the intent to send a message, a warning, and it had been received. "Their fleets are smaller than ours," Rock continued. "Their empire is not as vast, but their weapons, their tactics, superior in ways we did not anticipate. They do not fight for conquest. They fight to survive, and that makes them dangerous." Viren's jaw tightened. The Svo Dominion had ruled through strength and fear. Every species they encountered had fallen in line, crushed beneath their might. Until now. Until humans. Viren tapped his claws against the table, his mind racing. If the Dominion's usual tactics would not work, they would need a new strategy, a different approach. He had seen firsthand how the humans fought, how they thought, and if they thought the Dominion would simply lick its wounds and hide, They were gravely mistaken. He looked up at Rock. Prepare a full-scale analysis of their fleet, their weapon systems, their battle formations. If they have weaknesses, we will find them. If they do not, we will create them. Rock nodded. And if High Command refuses to act? Viren's lips curled into a snarl. Then High Command is a nest of fools. He rose to his full height, eyes burning with determination. The humans believe they have won, that we will fear them now. But fear is a weapon we wield better than they do. His claws traced the outline of the Dominion's insignia on his armor. This is not over. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of an empire. We will return. And when they did, humanity would learn a lesson no species had ever survived. The Dominion never forgave a slight. The halls of the Dominion's War Council were carved from obsidian stone, their towering pillars stretching toward a ceiling lost in shadows. The air carried a cold, oppressive weight, thick with the scent of burning incense and metal, a place where only strength held meaning. Lord General Viren strode through the corridors with measured, deliberate steps. His golden armor gleamed under the low lights, his cloak trailing behind him like the shadow of death. Behind him, Rock and two other officers followed in silence, their expressions carefully blank. They had no right to speak here. Only Viren did. As he approached the War Council chamber, the massive doors hissed open, revealing a room filled with the highest-ranking members of the Dominion's military and ruling caste. The Zvo High Lord sat in a half-circle, their reptilian gazes piercing and unyielding. Above them, a massive holographic display flickered to life, showing the Kessler Prime battle report in chilling detail. The silence was suffocating. Finally, the Supreme Warlord Jirik leaned forward on his throne-like chair, his scaled features expressionless. He had ruled the military for over a century, and in all those years, he had never seen a failure like this. His voice, when he spoke, was slow and dangerous. Explain this disgrace. Viren did not bow. He did not kneel. He was not some pathetic wretch groveling for forgiveness. He was commander, and he had come not to apologize but to warn. We were unprepared, he admitted. Humanity is stronger than we anticipated, more advanced, more dangerous. A ripple of cold laughter echoed through the chamber. One of the High Lords, a battle-scarred veteran named Cryos, sneered. Humans? Dangerous? You expect us to believe they bested the Dominion. Viren met his gaze with cold fury. Yes. The laughter died. Jirik's fingers tapped against the armrest of his throne. You speak as if there are equals, Lord General. Viren's jaw tightened. They are worse than that. Murmurs swept through the chamber. Some of the older warlords scoffed. Others remained silent, watching him carefully. Rock, standing just behind Viren, took a slow breath but said nothing. This was dangerous territory. To admit that the Dominion had found an enemy it could not immediately crush was to challenge everything the Empire stood for. Jirik's piercing gaze studied Viren. Then tell me, Lord General, if they are such a threat, why did they not finish you? Viren's claws curled into fists. That was the question that haunted him the most. The humans could have wiped them out completely. They had chosen not to, and that terrified him. They wanted us to retreat, he said slowly. They wanted us to know they could have destroyed us. His voice darkened, and they wanted us to tell you. Jirik leaned back, his expression unreadable. Arrogance. Viren shook his head. No. Confidence. The murmurs grew louder. Some of the warlords looked uneasy now. Jirik's golden eyes narrowed. And what do you suggest we do about this confidence? Viren stepped forward, his voice like a blade slicing through the tension in the room. We strike back. We show them that the Dominion does not retreat. We do not cower. We do not fear. His voice grew into a snarl. We burn their worlds. We erase them from the stars. Cryos scoffed again. And how do you propose we do that when you could not even hold a single battle against them? Viren turned his head sharply. Because I learned from that battle. He looked at Jurek. The humans are different from any species we have ever faced. If we use the same tactics we always have, we will lose. That got their attention. Jurek studied him, his fingers tightening against the armrest. And what do you suggest? Viren exhaled slowly. We fight as they do. Adapt, learn, change. His eyes gleamed with something dark. We have always relied on our overwhelming numbers and superior firepower to win our wars. That will not work against humanity. Jurek was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. And if you are wrong, Viren's lip curled. Then I will not return from the next battle. A tense silence. Then, slowly, Jurek smiled, a sharp, cruel thing. Then let us see if humanity is truly worthy of being our enemy. The war had just begun. The War Council chamber remained heavy with tension as the Supreme Warlord Jurek leaned forward, his piercing golden eyes locked onto Viren. The other High Lords, once skeptical, now sat in uneasy silence. The idea that humanity had become a genuine threat to the Dominion was not something they had ever considered, but Viren had forced them to. Jurek tapped his claws against the armrest of his throne-like chair. The rhythmic sound echoed through the chamber, each tap punctuating the slow unraveling of everything they had once believed. The Dominion was meant to be supreme, unchallenged, absolute, and yet here stood one of their most decorated warlords telling them otherwise. You claim we must adapt, Jurek said finally, that our standard tactics would not suffice. If that is true, then tell me, Lord General, how do you propose we change? Viren's mind had been racing toward that very question for hours. He knew the Dominion could not afford to respond to humanity's advance with brute force alone. If they simply threw fleets at the humans like they did with weaker species, they would be torn apart again. No, they needed something different, something worse. We must stop fighting like conquerors, Viren said, his voice sharp, and start fighting like predators. A few of the High Lords stirred at that, some with intrigue, others with skepticism. Explain, Jurek commanded. Viren stepped forward, standing tall in the center of the chamber. The humans do not fight for expansion, nor for conquest. They fight to survive. That is why they are dangerous. It is why they were able to overwhelm us at Kessa Prime. Their entire species has been forged in war, from the moment they learned to fight with primitive weapons to the battles they wage in the void today. Every war has made them stronger. He let his words sink in before continuing. But survival has a cost. They may be strong in open war, but they still have weaknesses. His voice lowered, turning almost predatory. They value their people, their civilians, their infrastructure, their allies. They fight with discipline, and that discipline can be broken. Jurek's lips curled into the ghost of a smile. Ah, you propose we take the war beneath their fleets. Viren nodded. Their technology is superior, their tactics advanced. But war is not just fought in space. If they fight to protect their kind, then we must make their people suffer. We target their supply lines, their trade, their colonies. We strike where they are not expecting us. Cryos, the High Lord who had scoffed at Viren before, sneered. You suggest we abandon direct combat? That we fight like cowards? Viren's gaze snapped at him, cold and dangerous. There is no cowardice in victory. There is only strength and there is death. He tilted his head slightly. Do you still believe them weak, High Lord? Cryos growled but did not answer. Jurek chuckled darkly. I see. You do not seek to defeat them in battle. His golden eyes gleamed. You seek to shatter them. Viren nodded once. A war of attrition will not work, but a war of terror, that will break them. The Supreme Warlord leaned back, considering. And what forces would you require? Viren's claws tapped against the table. He had already planned for this. I will assemble a new strike force, not a fleet designed for open war, but one built for precision devastation. We will send fast, undetectable ships into their space, attack their civilian outposts, destroy their industrial worlds, sow discord among their people. His voice dropped lower. Make them fear the dark. A silence followed. Then Jurek exhaled through his nostrils, a slow and calculating breath. It has been a long time, he said, since we fought an enemy worthy of such effort. The room remained still. The weight of the decision was clear. If the Dominion followed through with this, it would mean war not just in space, but in every shadow of the galaxy. A campaign of slaughter unlike any before. Jurek's lips curled into a grin. Very well. You will have your forces, Lord General. His voice grew darker. Go teach these humans what it means to challenge the Dominion. Viren's expression did not change, but deep within his cold reptilian heart, satisfaction burned. This war would not be like the last. This time, humanity would suffer. The war had changed. Lord General Viren stood aboard the command deck of the Vorsis, a sleek new warship built for one purpose: devastation. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts of the Dominion Standard Fleet, the Vorsis was a predator in the dark, equipped with the latest in stealth technology, sensor disruption fields, and specialized weaponry designed for fast, precise strikes. Behind him, the bridge crew moved in practiced silence. They were not ordinary Dominion soldiers. Every officer, every pilot, every technician aboard the Vorsis had been hand-selected for this campaign. These were not warriors meant for conquest. These were hunters. And the hunt was about to begin. Viren's cold reptilian eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. A map of human-controlled space spread across the screen, red markers pinpointing strategic locations. Unlike the battle at Kessa Prime, this was not a war fought over territory or military might. It was a war of precision, of terror. His second-in-command, Rock, approached silently, his scaled features etched with grim determination. All strike teams report ready, Lord General. We await your command. Viren nodded once, his claws tapping against the metallic surface of the command console. Show me the primary target again. The holographic display shifted, focusing on a small human colony, Helio Station. Unlike Kessa Prime, this was not a mining world, but a research outpost home to over 5,000 civilian scientists, engineers, and their families, far from protected core systems, isolated enough to be vulnerable, yet significant enough that its destruction would echo across human space. Perfect. Our intelligence confirms minimal defenses, Rock continued. Their sensors are focused outward toward deep space for their research. They will not detect our approach until it's too late. Viren's lips curled into a cold smile. And a united Terran Defense Force. The nearest patrol is 3 days away at maximum speed. By the time they arrive, we will be gone. Viren's eyes narrowed. This was it. The beginning of a new type of war. The Dominion would no longer meet humanity in open battle, where their superior technology could devastate Zvo fleets. Instead, they would strike like assassins, killing quickly before melting back into the void. Begin the approach, he ordered. Silent running. I want no warnings, no transmissions. When we strike, I want it to be as if death itself appeared from nowhere. The Vorsis slipped through the darkness of space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. As they closed in on Helio Station, Viren felt something he had not experienced since before the humiliation at Kessa Prime. Anticipation. Today, humanity would learn fear. Admiral Elias Rains stood at the viewport of the UTDF Harbinger, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of distant stars. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Kessa Prime. 6 months of uneasy silence from the Zvo Dominion. Intelligence suggested they were licking their wounds, regrouping, perhaps even reconsidering their expansionist policies after facing such a decisive defeat. But Rains knew better. Admiral. A young officer approached, her uniform crisp, her expression concerned. The latest intelligence report from the border sectors. Rains took the datapad, scanning its contents. His brow furrowed. Another communication blackout? That's the 3rd outpost this month. Yes, sir. each one lasting exactly 17 minutes before systems come back online. No damage reported, no signs of intrusion. Just silence. Rain's jaw tightened. This wasn't random interference or technical glitches. This was reconnaissance. Someone was testing human defenses, probing for weaknesses, gauging response times. The Zvo. Where's the pattern centered? He asked, his voice low. That's what's concerning, sir. The officer pulled up a star chart. If we map the affected locations, they form a spiral pattern leading toward. Her finger traced a trajectory. Helios Station. Rains finished, his blood running cold. He straightened immediately. Contact Helios. Priority Alpha. Then get me Admiral Zhang at Fleet Command. The officer hesitated. Sir, it's likely nothing. Helios is a civilian research station. The Dominion has always targeted resource-rich worlds or strategic military. The Dominion we knew would have. Rains cut her off. But they're not playing by those rules anymore. Not after Kessa Prime. His eyes hardened. They're evolving. As the officer hurried to execute his orders, Rains turned back to the viewport, his mind racing. The Zvo weren't just an empire. They were predators to their core. And wounded predators didn't retreat. They adapted, became more dangerous. Sir, the communications officer called out, his voice tight with tension. We can't reach Helios Station. All channels are dead. 17 minutes of silence. Reconnaissance complete. Rain's fist clenched. Battle stations. All ships. Prepare for emergency jump. We're heading to Helios, now. The Vorsis hung in the void above Helios Station, its sleek form finally visible now that stealth was no longer necessary. Within the research outpost, panic spread like wildfire. Emergency signals blared throughout the dome complex as civilian scientists frantically tried to understand what was happening. Their long-range communications had been severed. Their defenses, minimal as they were, had been neutralized with surgical precision, and now death loomed above them. On the bridge of the Vorsis, Viren watched the chaos unfolding through the station's own security feeds, which his technical teams had easily accessed. The humans scrambled like insects, some trying to evacuate, others desperately attempting to restore communications. It was pathetic, satisfying. Targeting systems locked, Rock reported. One volley will breach the dome. The vacuum will do the rest. Viren tilted his head, studying the feeds. Children. He could see human children being rushed to safety. So fragile, so vulnerable, so perfect for his purpose. No, he said, his voice cold and measured. No quick death. I want survivors. His claws tapped against his armrest. Deploy the ground teams. I want them to understand that nowhere is safe from the Dominion, not even their homes. Rock hesitated, just for a heartbeat. This was different from traditional Dominion warfare. This was not conquest. This was terror. As you command, he replied, relaying the orders. Within minutes, Zvo strike teams were aboard the station, moving through the corridors with lethal efficiency. Their orders were clear. Maximum casualties, maximum fear, but leave enough survivors to spread the word of what had happened here. Let humanity know that the Dominion could reach them anywhere. Viren watched the helmet feeds of his soldiers, satisfaction growing as the body count rose. This was only the beginning. After Helios, there would be other targets, each one carefully selected to inflict not just physical damage, but psychological wounds. Science stations, agricultural colonies, medical facilities, places the humans thought were safe. Lord General, the tactical officer called out, his voice sharp with alarm. Jump signatures detected. Multiple vessels entering the system. Viren's head snapped up. Impossible. The nearest human fleet is days away. The tactical display shifted, showing a warped region of space as multiple ships tore through the fabric of reality itself. Leading them was a massive battlecruiser that Viren recognized immediately. The UTDF Harbinger, Admiral Rain's flagship. How? Viren snarled. How did they know? There was no answer, only the alarming reality that they were suddenly outgunned. The Vorsis was built for stealth and precision strikes, not open combat against a battle group. "Recall the ground teams," Viren ordered, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Prepare for emergency jump." But before the order could be executed, the space around them erupted in blinding light as a human fleet opened fire. The Vorsis shuddered under the impact, its shield straining against the onslaught. "They've targeted our engines," Rock reported, his usual calm demeanor cracking. "Jump drive is offline." Viren's lips pulled back in a snarl. They were trapped. How had Rains anticipated this? How had he known? As if it answered his unspoken question, the main view screen flickered, and Admiral Elias Rains' face appeared. The human's expression was cold, his eyes hard with a rage so controlled it was terrifying. "Lord General Viren," Rains said, his voice like ice. "I was hoping it would be you." Viren straightened, refusing to show weakness, even to face a certain defeat. "Admiral, you have a habit of arriving where you're not wanted." "You've changed your tactics," Rains observed, ignoring the taunt. "Attacking civilians, targeting researchers, children." His eyes narrowed fractionally. "I didn't think even the Dominion would sink so low." "War evolves," Viren replied coldly, "as do those who wish to win it." "This isn't war," Rains countered. "This is slaughter, and it ends now." The Harbinger unleashed another barrage, this one more precise, targeting specific systems rather than attempting to destroy the Vorsis outright. Viren realized with mounting fury that they weren't trying to destroy his ship. They were disabling it, capturing it. "Full power to weapons," he ordered. "If we die, we take them with us." But before his crew could execute the command, a new alarm blared through the ship. Internal sensors detected unauthorized access points throughout the Vorsis. The tactical display switched to internal security feeds, showing sleek figures in black armor moving to the corridors with terrifying speed and precision. "Boarding parties?" Rock whispered, disbelief evident in his voice. "But our shields are still operational." "How did they?" "Because we were never their target." Viren realized with dawning horror. This was a trap. All of it. On the screen, Rain's expression remained impassive. "After Kessa Prime, we knew you would adapt. The Zvo Dominion doesn't retreat. It evolves. So we gave you exactly what you wanted. An easy target, isolated, seemingly vulnerable." Viren's mind raced. The communication blackouts. The pattern. Breadcrumbs. Rains confirmed. "We needed to draw out the architect of this new strategy." His eyes bored into Viren's. "You." The ship shuddered again as more systems failed. The bridge doors hissed open, and Viren turned to see human special forces flooding the command deck, weapons raised. Behind them stood a tall woman in a commander's uniform, her dark eyes cold and calculating. "Commander Maya Chan," she introduced herself, her weapon trained on Viren's chest. "Special operations. Your strike teams on Helios have been neutralized. The civilians are safe." A small, dangerous smile touched her lips. "Your new way of war just failed its first test, Lord General." Viren's claws flexed, rage building within him. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Not like this. "I must admit," Rains continued from the view screen, "you almost had us. The stealth technology, the precision strikes, it might have worked against a less prepared opponent. But you made one critical mistake, Viren." "And what was that?" Viren growled. "Even as human soldiers secured the bridge. You assume we think like you." Rains leaned closer to the screen. "The Dominion fights to conquer. Every tactic, every strategy revolves around dominance, subjugation. But humanity," his voice softened, becoming somehow more menacing. "We fight to protect, and that makes us see patterns you cannot." With a nod from Commander Chun, the human soldiers moved to restrain Viren and his officers. The once feared Lord General of the Zvo Dominion stood in stunned silence as his ship, his crew, and his war fell apart around him. This defeat will change nothing, Viren hissed. The Dominion will still come. We will still destroy you. No, Rains replied simply. You won't, because today isn't just about capturing you or saving Helios. He paused, his expression grave. While we've been talking, 5 other UTDF battle groups have struck key targets throughout Dominion space. Shipyards, command centers, supply depots, all chosen carefully, all hit simultaneously. Viren's blood ran cold. We're not like you, Rains continued. We don't target civilians. Every strike was against military infrastructure only. Clean, precise, devastating. His eyes hardened. Consider it a demonstration of what happens when you force humanity to truly go to war. The reality crashed down on Viren like a physical weight. They had been outplayed at every turn. The humans hadn't just anticipated their move. They had engineered it, used Viren's own strategy against the entire Dominion. As we speak, Rains concluded, a delegation from Earth is approaching Zvo Prime under a flag of truce. They carry terms for the Dominion's unconditional withdrawal from all contested systems, including Kessa Prime. His voice turned cold. And they carry evidence of what happens if those terms are rejected. The transmission cut, leaving Viren standing in the midst of his captured bridge, surrounded by human soldiers. His empire's greatest weakness had been exposed today. They had always believed themselves the apex predator of the galaxy, incapable of being hunted themselves. But humanity had proven otherwise. They had not only adapted, they had anticipated, calculated, and executed with a level of strategic foresight that the Dominion had never encountered before. As Commander Chen led him away in restraints, Viren finally understood the truth that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. The stars no longer belonged solely to the Dominion. A new power had risen, one that fought not with brute force alone, but with intelligence, adaptability, and an iron will to protect their own. Humanity had come, and they were here to stay. 3 weeks later, on the bridge of the UTDF Harbinger, Admiral Elias Rains stood before his assembled officers. The view screen displayed the formal withdrawal of the last Zvo Dominion warships from Kessa Prime and 6 other contested systems. Behind him, Commander Chen watched with quiet satisfaction. Her mission complete. The Dominion's High Council has ratified the treaty, Rains announced. They've agreed to recognize independent space around all human colonies and establish a demilitarized zone between our territories. Do you think they'll honor it? A young lieutenant asked. Rains considered the question. They will for now. The Dominio's military leadership has been restructured. His expression remained neutral, but there was a gravity to his words. Lord General Viren's capture and the simultaneous strikes against their infrastructure demonstrated something they hadn't considered possible, that they could lose, genuinely lose. Commander Chen stepped forward. Intelligence suggests there's significant internal conflict within their hierarchy. Some factions want revenge. Others recognize that continuing this war will be disastrous. And Viren, another officer asked. Prisoner exchange, Rains replied. He's being returned to the Dominion, though I doubt he'll retain his position after such a failure. He paused, but his capture served its purpose. The Dominion now understand that we aren't just technologically capable, we're strategically unpredictable. The view screen shifted to show the stars beyond, the infinite void where both human and Zvo ships now move with cautious respect for newly established boundaries. Peace was fragile, especially with an empire built on conquest. But for now, at least, the Dominion had been taught the most important lesson, that underestimating humanity was a mistake they could not afford to make again. As the officers dispersed, Rains remained at the viewport, his thoughts turning to the future. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and terrors yet undiscovered. Humanity had prevailed against one threat, but he knew there would be others. There always were. But whatever came next, the stars would bear witness to a simple truth. Humanity would not just survive among the ancient powers of the galaxy. They would thrive. Not through conquest or dominion, but through something far more powerful. The unwavering would protect their own and the ingenuity to outthink even the most fearsome of foes. The stars shimmered like diamonds in the void, bearing silent witness to the changing tides of galactic power. And among them, humanity's light burned brightest of all,